On a snowy Thursday morning here on Delaware, I'm Peter MacArthur, 9:35 now. It's February 11th, by the way, if you're keeping track at home or just having a hard time keeping track, and a lot of people are doing that. Let's talk jobs and all the issues surrounding those. Obviously, very important this, for these many months, right? Rick Jensen, of course, talks with the Unemployment Office on a weekly basis. We try to handle things on the other end of the spectrum here. If you're looking for your next position, we want to help get you there a little bit. Chris Burkhart, Placer Staffing in Newark, joins us as he does quite frequently. Chris, hey, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Pete. Happy snowy Thursday.
I know it. You know, time just whips by. I don't think that's a news flash to anybody. It's hard to believe we're into February already, Chris, and we have a month of data now on how 2021 is moving toward recovery. What have you seen so far with labor recovery, Chris?
Pete, I've got some good news, and I often look for it and don't have much to share, but I really do see a positive trend. Things are starting to improve in the job market. Companies are resuming hiring again. The number of job postings or, the number of times a company puts an opening up on the internet for you to find, they're up above pandemic levels. And then, of course, this morning we find out that unemployment claims declined again. Now, it's only 20,000 individuals, but it's been a steady decline since the peak in December. Now, there's a couple of factors that I found that are different from the last time I was able to share some things, and it's that some of that government aid that's getting out in the form of small business loans that helps employers keep and retain workers, that round two, that's starting to have an impact. And then regionally, the at-home orders like California, or specifically restrictions around things like restaurants and gyms and other public places, they are being lifted. So we're seeing workers come back to those jobs. And maybe we can cross our fingers and toes. Perhaps confidence is slowly building. I think it's getting there.
What about the labor force participation rate, Chris? How can we interpret those numbers right now?
Well, first of all, the labor force participation rate is the number of people that are actively participating, that are capable of work, that are actually working. And one of the tough things is that even though unemployment has been in decline in January, there's two things that have happened. More people have dropped out of the labor force. And we're seeing it, those that are retiring a little bit early out of frustration in looking for work. And we're also, as I've mentioned, there's a whole group of people that want to work but are frustrated at their employment prospects because they've got child care, or perhaps they're caring for the elderly or, someone in the household. So it's a really interesting reality. Now, in terms of actual numbers, when we looked at, say this time a year ago, before the pandemic really became, a public thing, 63% of eligible folks were working. And that was, quite frankly, Pete, a high, I think a decade high, if you will. We're down to 61% today, and that's a very big reality. So a couple of things. If you are a job seeker, this is a world-class opportunity to go back to work. Now, I realize, Pete, those that can't until kids go back to school, or maybe perhaps until there's more safety and security with more vaccines or something else gives. But this is a terrific time to get a job. Now, if you're an employer, hiring was hard before the pandemic, very challenging during it, but the war for talent is very real. And finding employees with the right skills has not stopped being a challenge. Trust me, Placers feels this every day with our clients.
Yeah,
every minute.
I can imagine. I think all the time, Chris, about those people who've spent the brunt of this pandemic without a job, maybe those over half a year. And there are millions of these people out there. What advice do you give someone who's on long-term unemployment right now?
So I want to have this discussion with compassion, but also maybe tough love. I think it's the only way to help people is to give people ideas that can help shift and change their situation. So jobs and skills are changing. And the reality is, over the last year, there's been like a fast forwarding of that change. So there are jobs available, and there is talent available. The challenge is twofold: finding talent with these new skills, and the unemployed are finding jobs that pay less or are not full-time hours. So I think one of our biggest challenges as a country with work is to help employees with this concept of upskilling. You know, we've talked about this. Take a class, get a certification. That kind of never stops. But we hear from the long-term unemployed that their class of job maybe no longer exists, and that may be true. That virus has transformed things so much, but it is going to create new jobs and changes in other roles. And I know it's not easy, but if we can help folks get those new skills, that's kind of a big deal. Now, there are online sites that mix free courses like Coursera or Udemy. I'm not tied to them at all. They have paid courses, but there's a whole army of folks that are trying to help the unemployed, and they have good programs for those. So it's just a suggestion. But I think our bigger opportunity that we need to work on is to help really good people get new skills for the new jobs in this, next normal economy.
And you talk about marketplace transformation, Chris. People that have been working from home for a few months are thinking to themselves, man, I kind of like this. I see a lot of upside in working remotely from whatever company I'm working for. In terms of these remote work trends we're hearing so much about now, if someone wanted to explore that more, what's a good starting point for that?
This question is like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other one is I hate remote working. When can I get back into an office? So there really is a polarization of this. So the first thing you have to do is look at the jobs that you've had and see if they're conducive to remote work. Some jobs just aren't. Many healthcare jobs are not. Or if you produce something in a manufacturing plant, you probably know this about yourself or know this about the work that you've done. But I'm telling you, customer service, sales, information technology, project management, and a whole host of other jobs can work out well remotely, and companies are moving them in that direction. Now, if this is the interesting thing, is we get like, well, how do I find those jobs? And what we've realized is most people are using a job board to find at least the lead, and they're putting their resume up on it. But what you need to look for in your search are things like work from home or virtual job or distance work or maybe geographically neutral. There's this whole list of words that we never saw really in job postings before, but there's a language to determine, and then that helps you determine if that role is appropriate for you to apply for remote work. The other thing is when people are used to using these job boards, there's always fields that indicate your location.
Right.
Now, this is a very specific thing, but leave that out when you're doing that so it won't limit you to your zip code or your city or state, and it will open you up to remote work. And that's the mind-blowing thing, right? If you live in Wilmington, you tend to put Wilmington, but you may end up working for a company anywhere, and that's the way to do it. The other thing, final piece, is create a job alert, which helps you define things that have those remote words.
Yeah, really. And to be clear on this, Chris, obviously there are a lot of independent contractor opportunities this way, but also there are companies that are offering full-time gigs with all the benefits you would see in an office 9-to-5 scenario, right?
Well, it's an interesting perspective. And one thing I wanted to share about jobs and about unemployment. In January, the largest class of jobs that were created and or filled, people got jobs in, was temporary work. It was 81,000. What I think is important, it's not about my industry per se, but it is sort of what I'll call that canary in the coal mine. The jobs came back temporarily, which means businesses have a lot of stuff to get done, but they're still a little nervous about the commitment. It is, I've watched this in, call me old, but 3 or 4 recessions, and that is a great sign for everyone because that means that we're beginning to heal up. Now, the broader point you're asking, I think that there businesses have been profoundly changed. There's business advantages to reduce their physical footprint. It's cheaper for the customer in the long run. And all of us are rethinking how we work. And whether it's a hybrid schedule or all remote work, all kinds of work, freelance, temp, full-time in the traditional sense, are all becoming eligible. And I think you're only going to see more of it, Pete, as businesses, rethink their space and actually execute those ideas.
Yeah, I would wager on that as well. Chris Burkhardt, Placers Staffing in Newark. Chris, as people listen to you this morning, if they want to find out more about what Placers does, what's a good place to turn?
They can search myplacers.com. We have an ongoing program called Placers Act of Kindness. If you're in a spot where anything resonated, you need help with your resume or your job search or help someone in your household get back on their feet with work, we're here to help for free.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Chris, have a good rest of the week and weekend, and I will talk to you soon.
Same to you.
All right. Chris Burkhardt, Placer Staffing here on WDEL.